Welcome to the best of the tie-in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the tie-in. Today, we are speaking with Adam Rowe. Adam is an entertainment production designer and art director with experience ranging from pop-up environments, game shows, live events, parades, concerts, scripted television, and movies. He's been a part of several art departments that have been nominated for an Art Directors Guild Award, like Parks and Recreation, Good Place, Mad Men, and won an Emmy for the art direction on Rent on Fox. Adam has been in the entertainment industry for years and has a wealth of experience to share. I really want folks to hear about your set reuse experience. So I wondered if you could walk us through the presentation that you did at LA Climate Week. And
Yes. Happy to
so
do it.
cool.
I call this, good Glam Lock. And I think I have to back up just a little bit to kind of give people some context. So in 2020, so 5 years ago, I designed a set for the medical drama Good Sam in Toronto. And then 4 years later, it followed me to Los Angeles after I transformed it into a makeup headquarters. So it was being rethemed for a makeup headquarters for a stunning diva. And then I did it again for a septuagenarian sleuth, which is Maddie Matlock. And then I rescued it from the dumpster with help from Joe. So there's a lot to break down in that tiny little sentence. So we designed the CBS medical drama Good Sam, not just for aesthetics, but it was designed for long-term use with production efficiency in mind. And that came from the showrunner and the producers who wanted to make sure that they had quick access to off-camera support and they had quick ways to roll in and turn the lights on. So the set from the beginning, and Good Sam is the scenery that's on the far right of this image, it was designed to be as shooter-friendly and aesthetically friendly for the show simultaneously, where lots of times things are designed for look and function comes later. I mean, the perfect example is that you build a beautiful bedroom and then you have to figure out how to wile the wall. Well, I was instructed from the beginning, put those together. And so we, through the help of Joe, we kind of really focused on modularity and quick access. And, when you think about 35 crew members getting out of a set quickly, you need a lot of double doors. So that's essentially part of how it all came to be. But then how do you actually make sure that you don't step on aesthetics? And so the showrunner, Katie Wesh, and the executive producer, Jenny Ehrman, they really knew that speed was key in Good Sam, but they also wanted it to be filled with sunlight and warmth and aspiration. And I'm giving this backstory because those things laid the foundation that allowed for the flexibility that comes later. But we didn't know this was going to happen at the time. We just thought we were making Good Sam. And Good Sam had 7 or 8 major characters, and we had a lot of story to tell. So we had to, scenery-wise, we had a lot of story to tell too. So fast forward, sadly, Good Sam was canceled after 13 episodes, and Frank Siracusa and John Weber, who are, incredible producers in the city of Toronto, who I think are part of Wiseacre, although I don't know if they still call that name anymore.
They do.
Okay, they do. That's good.
Yeah.
I hide that. They are at the apex of respect for me. I mean, these two people have done so much for television and so much for the community of Toronto. It's, I'm not blowing smoke. I've been there firsthand. I just respect them so much. But they said to me, what can we do with this set, essentially? And I was like, well, you guys are doing Star Trek. It could be a spaceship. It could be an FBI headquarters. It could be a lot of other things. And I had learned from Criminal Minds that, which is a show that has a different police station in the country every week. So one week you're doing Phoenix, the next week you're doing Miami, and the next week you're doing an Alpine police station. And so how they did it is that they just had a floating ceiling and some carpet and a bunch of rat maze kind of walls that you could flip and turn and you could make it. So this set, Good Sam, was already designed to do that because we didn't know what these cardiologists were going to be doing over, what could have been 5 seasons of medical drama. So when the show was canceled and we had made a large investment into it, it was like, what are we going to do? So it was a sprawling cardiology hospital that now was going to become a makeup headquarters. So let me go to the next slide here. So what you're seeing is some of the images from Good Sam. So it's important to kind of look at this image here. This was the waiting room. There is patient room number 1, patient room number 2, and then an ER room. And these were kind of flipped and turned to make different kinds of rooms because you have different kinds of needs. A hospital is a little bit like a spaceship because you kind of have tools and equipment per part of your spaceship. So then what we're seeing here is Good Sam on the right, Glamorous in the middle, and Matlock on the left. And they are taken from the same point of view. So you're seeing patient room 1 on the top right. You're seeing what was the graphic art department in Glamorous, and then Olympia's office in Matlock. So these are taken from the same view. And I've shown these slides, and people are like, well, how did you know to take the shot from the same place? And part of it was chance, but I also knew that this was the science experiment here. This was like, what can we get away with? Because there's a lot of acceptance you have to trust from the audience that they will forgive and forget. That's kind of the phrase that I've been using to learn. And what people forget are that the windows are the same and that the ceiling is the same. And what they forgive is the story, meaning they care about the story. They don't really care so much always about the walls. As much as the production editor is precious about every choice, there's a lot they can get over. So you're seeing the same here. You're seeing Good Sam on the bottom here, Glamorous, the same staircase. You can kind of see Joe's fine work here. And I just have to point out the person who made the stairs. His name is Tread, and you can't get a better pun in the industry than that. But the man who makes stairs is Tread. And he just made an amazing staircase, so amazing. It moved on a semi-truck and now is standing at Paramount here in this image. So this set was moved from LA to
from Toronto.
That's the one Joe talked about on the podcast. Yes. Oh my gosh. Now we have a visual.
And through your podcast, I learned that there were more stumbling blocks. So you're actually going to get the American side of the challenges because you've already talked about the Toronto side. And I just want to point out that one of the many challenges of reusing scenery is cataloging and caring for it. And I'm going to show pictures, I think, a little bit further along here. But I want to just tell you just a little bit more about Good Sam so we kind of understand. This was actually from this picture right here. Is from UTM for Mississauga. So this building was the MN building, and it was sitting basically unused during the pandemic, which is why Good Sam benefited from using it. And I love to point this out because this building is about as environmentally friendly as the UTM campus likes to tote about. And it now is still living on Matlock because these windows and this form and these ceilings I copied from this real building that's environmentally sound, and now it's living on. And I just find that all to be so like coincidental.
That's great.
Hard to, rational.
You can't tell. I mean, it's incredible.
So all of these are the same room. So this is, again, reusing scenery. This is that Golden Girls philosophy. There's reusing scenery, and then there's re-theming scenery, like as a whole permanent set. So these are just kind of redoing, we have a dark room, and then we have a light room, and then we have a different room. So that's kind of done in television across the board. But what was really a big experiment was how do we get this permanent set, this massive set that, filled up 2 sound stages to look like a new thing. And that was where I had to trust in Frank and John. I had to go into the producers of Glamorous and be like, hey, I know what you're seeing looks like a hospital, but we can make it look like, a new place. And, that's a tall design challenge. And I'm not going to lie, it was nerve-wracking because I didn't have a lot of prep. I had to do it really, really quickly. And it worked. And so then when it worked on Glamorous, we're seeing the same shot. Here's the Glamorous conference room. You can see the waiting room in the distance here. You're seeing the Glamorous reception desk, which, took the place of the Good Sam nurses station. So, as we look at the detective work here, one of the other things that paid off wonderfully so is that the lighting was done in RGB tape so that, as the shows change, you can see how it's pink in Glamorous. And it was, that actually worked out really well. And the DPs really loved this. ring light, which was basically me using the social media ring light that we see all the time on TikTok videos and putting it on the ceilings so that performers had even light. And it just worked so well. It's been living with all 3 shows. And I just to be a great experiment as well.
Adam, any resistance or what resistance did you face as you were, you're talking us through this like it was easy. Were there moments where there was sort of like, nope, we're not going to do it, and you had to sort of really make the pitch for it? Or was it always, yep, no problem, this is a great idea, let's go for it?
It's a very good question. So we'll take it in stages. When we went from Good Sam to Glamorous, it was a fairly easy sell. And the reason why is because Frank and John were on board, number one. Number two, Glamorous's budget did not allow for an expansive set. And Glamorous operated a little bit like a soap opera. So you, again, had a lot of story to tell. You were mostly following, the 2 main characters, but there were a lot of what would be considered side stories. And so we knew we needed a bathroom and a break room and 2 offices and, elevator cabs. And so to start over and do it from scratch for the 9 or 8 episodes, I can't remember how we did, was economically probably not possible, or it would have just been a really small set. And so to be able to walk into a concept meeting to meet the showrunner and the producer to say, hey, look what you could have, it lubricated the wheels, and I'm certain it helped me get the job, because not every designer can inherit another designer's work. Like, that's just a reality. Like, not a lot of designers want to take somebody else's work and then make it their own. But for some reason, we do that on locations all the time. I mean, the same 5 buildings in Toronto get shot 400 times. And
same here in Vancouver. They've even put up permanent power kiosks because they don't even
use the same place.
Yeah, exactly. And so we for some reason, we have a philosophy about it that's okay with locations, but we don't have a philosophy with it with permanent sets. And so I'm here to kind of fill that gap. And so with Good Sam to Glamorous, it kind of came easier. What's been really fun too is the people who are part of Good Sam feel very proud of it. So that part worked well. And then when we went from Glamorous to Matlock, that came out of a economic decision as well. So it was like, how can we turn, Glamorous, which at that point was not canceled, how can we turn Glamorous into Matlock temporarily? And so that was a little bit difficult to sell and very difficult to do on a budget for a pilot and on a time but it came out of economics. So we did it. And then when the strike happened and Glamorous's fate, was decided and it was not going to move forward, this is where it got hard. And I know that if Joe Maziak hadn't called me and said, hey, we're putting together a budget essentially for striking of what was then the Glamorous set, I just was like, oh my God, we cannot do that. It's so much steel and so much glass. I mean, just look at these windows here. And I think he said in the previous podcast, it was like $500,000 in steel, which makes everybody's eyes bug out. But that comes from the original Good Sam, which was all about sunlight and healing and making people feel the warmth of a medical drama, not the sterility of a medical drama. Well, here comes Matlock needing spyness and looking in, and Hudson Yard skyscrapers and Midtown skyscrapers. So it's like, guys, it's all here. We have an amazing staircase that goes to nowhere. We got to do this. And so the obstacles there was a lot of them. And I'll be honest with you, it was probably 5 weeks of pure dedication on a lot of people's shoulders. John Weber, Frank Siracusa, Joe Maziak, the Patricia Fast Palmer, who was here in the US, and then me. And not only that, the documentation and the manifesting,
right.
But what was great about Joe and why Joe soars in this is he was able to show you like, hey, it's going to cost this much to throw it away, or it's going to cost it this much to put it in a truck. Yeah. And then when it got, the first stumbling block, which is where do we store it? Which, my head exploded when I heard that, because it's like, where do we store it? No one's filming anything. Like, there's the parking lots and storage facilities galore in Los Angeles. But then again, the person who could be making that decision is very disconnected from this. So that's not blame. That's just like, we have to fill that gap of information. And it's very easy for people to be like, oh, producers, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's fair. I think it's that there's just explanation and knowledge. And if everybody's worried about the bottom line, you need to show them that the bottom line actually is still the bottom line, whether you throw it away or reuse it. There's not much cost savings. So the political aspect was hard, and then the documentation and the showing people that we can save money. And then the icing on that cake, or the cherry on top of that story, is that when Matlock's amort budget to build the permanent sets here in Los Angeles came in, I think a lot of people were really shocked that it wasn't cheap, because, oh my gosh, we just spent all this money to move the scenery here. I think it was like $17,000 US to pay to move the scenery from Toronto to Los Angeles, but that doesn't include the labor on the, the strike side, and it doesn't include the labor on the building side. But that's because prices of glass and steel went up so much from 2020 when we did this, 2021 to 2024. So it's like, in the United States, you can buy a forever stamp and that price stays the same. We had forever stamps, metaphorically speaking, and glass, because the prices were going up, but yet we had, 75 panes of glass and, X amount of linear feet. So it's hard to quantify. Also, labor prices have gone so far up.
Yeah.
But when you have a puzzle at home and you put it together the first time, it goes together, efficiently. Now, when you have to put that puzzle together the second time, whether it's a broken radio or a car engine, you're going to have extra pieces and things don't fit as well. That's exactly what putting a setup is like. And shows in the history of reused scenery have burned the bridges for producers. When Veep, if somebody knows the real story, I'd love it, because I only know hearsay. But when it moved from Baltimore to Los Angeles, they had the White House and they had Sawzall lines through dental molding, and they just cut the walls wherever they cut them to fit them into storage containers, and they didn't pack it. They just shipped it across the country, and they wobbled the whole way across Route 80 all the way across the United States. So by the time they showed up, they were trash.
Yeah.
And so now you just spent all this money to reuse scenery, and you shipped garbage. So it's like there's so many components to reuse, but as the world of efficiency and budgets get tinier, we have to learn how to do it better. And this is a flagship case of successfully doing that.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share. We do this because we love doing it. We believe in what we're doing, and we believe in the amazing guests that we have. So please share this with a friend and a colleague and spread the word.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Social media is by Sharon Ewan. Our editor and producer is Rachel Werbel.